Hello, Younger Oldie here and welcome to my channel. Now I'm doing a follow-up video to riding through retirement. I had decided to leave this content out of the first one as the video would have been too long, but as I had so many great comments, for which I'm very grateful for, I decided to do part 2. Stay tuned and watch the intro. I hope all of these great comments that have been read by other viewers and have actually inspired other riders to continue doing what we do and what we love and make any changes needed to enable us to keep doing so. Some of the comments were from riders up to 80 years plus, so you know what, total respect to you guys. Now one guy I chatted to at Huggies passed his car test back in 1968, but didn't do his bike test until June this year. As he recently passed his test, he would have gone through the whole training program required by law, starting with the CBT, a theory test, then followed by his Mod 1 and Mod 2 practical test. So basically all this knowledge is fresh in his mind. But then let's look at riders who passed their test, say 25 years ago, like me. I did a CBT and then had some training before I took my practical test, which would be classed as a Mod 2 nowadays. I didn't have to take a theory nor a Mod 1 test. So would I have forgotten some of this training? Yeah, I would have done, if it wasn't for me instructing, as this keeps everything fresh in my mind due to teaching today's trainings. Now let's jump back and talk about some riders, some of them I know around my age, who took their tests over 45 years ago. Now one of my mates mentioned that he took his test when we could all ride a 250cc bike on a provisional licence. No CBT were needed, no training was taken. He just booked his test, rocked up on the bike and took it. It was basically a ride round the block, and then the examiner would signal you to perform an emergency stop, and as long as this was executed correctly, you'd passed, and you could now ride any bike you wanted, carry a pillion and ride on the UK motorway network. Now I realise that 100% of these riders have gained a lifetime's experience, which is great, but not everyone can say that. I had a trainee last year who passed his test over 30 years ago, and he rode a 125cc bike for a couple of weeks, but due to different reasons he never got his own bike or ever rode again. He was about to take early retirement and decided he was going to get a bike. His wife was supporting his decision. He said it because she doesn't want him under her feet every day. But anyway, he did a wise thing in contacting us and booking a session to get him back into biking. We had a brief chat so I could basically assess his experience. I did an eyesight check to make sure his eyes were okay. The next 2 hours we just spent on the training yard and on the road, starting with a 125 and then a 650. He made very little mistakes and we soon managed to correct them. I met him a few weeks ago with his new bike. He mentioned that the couple of hours we spent together gave him the confidence he needed, and also it was part of the deal with his wife before getting a bike. Now let's question ourselves. Even though we may be an experienced rider with years in the saddle, but would we benefit from any further training, or at least learning about the things we should or must do? Now for instance, eyesight. Now if we wear glasses, our eyes will be tested every so often. But what if you're like me, you don't wear glasses? Now I know my eyes are okay, but the only reason is because I have to do eyesight tests, or checks I should say, when doing the CBT. The law states it is our responsibility to make sure our eyes are good enough to drive or ride. With or without glasses, it is an offence not to do so. Our eyesight can deteriorate at a very slow pace, so we don't actually notice ourselves that it's happening. So maybe an eye test would be a good idea. When was the last time you looked at the highway code? Are there any changes you should know about? Now, I'm not talking about reading all the road signs again. I'm talking about certain rules that would have changed. Here again, if it wasn't for me instructing, the last time I would have probably looked at it was 25 years ago when I passed my test. If you're stopped by the police for a certain offence and you said, "Oh, I didn't know that," their reply would be, "Well, ignorance is no excuse. It is your duty to know the rules of the road as you are driving and riding on them." They'll say this as they hand you your ticket or your fixed penalty notice. Now, I'm not saying we all need to take our tests again, but consider turning the TV off one night. Go online if you can do, and take a free mock theory test and hazard perception test. Now, these are designed for trainees to practice on, but it won't hurt to have a go just to see how you do. If you pass, you can give yourself a big pat on the back. If you fail, you can always try again and hopefully beat your last score. At the very least, you might learn something you didn't know or didn't realise. Only last night, as I am writing this, I was hoping to train a new trainee instructor who passed their test a number of years ago. But there was quite a lot of theory they had forgotten or just didn't know in the first place. You could contact a training scheme and book a session like we offer, and I'm sure you would come away gaining that extra bit of knowledge, or just come away knowing you are still a good and competent rider. Here again, only last night as I'm writing this, a fellow instructor had a rider who was returning to biking after a break. They turned up with their new bike, but felt their confidence was lacking in emergency stops and right-hand turns. 2 hours later, he was confident again and now ready to enjoy his new bike. Check your local constabulary and ask about the Bike Safe scheme. I did it years ago, and what a great time was had. I learned a lot from that. Take a mate or two along with you. It will be good fun and a good way to learn and recap on your skills. These police officers are bikers at the end of the day and are happy to spend the time with you and improve your knowledge. I was talking to a rider at one of the classic meets, and he said he's been riding 40 years. But then after a while I realised that he only takes his bike out about 3 times a year. So yeah, you got 40 years, but he hasn't had many hours on the road. We can all become complacent with time and we get into bad habits. I see it all the time. So to do a bit of extra training and refresh your skills with no pressure either to fail or pass a test scenario, it can only be a good thing. If you can honestly say that I don't need to do any of this, I am still a safe rider now, then fair enough. There may be many reasons for someone to consider hanging their crash helmet up for good, like medical problems, eyesight, or for other reasons. But for someone to give up because their bike is too heavy, or you can't ride for long distances, etc., is something that can be dealt with. Just by making certain changes, you can still ride if you want to. The same applies to your riding skills and confidence levels. If you have any doubts about these, you can do something easily and cheaply to improve it. Now, this can be the tricky one. Look at other riders within your friends or your riding group. Is there anyone you're concerned about due to their riding schools? Is there anyone you feel maybe should not be riding now? This is the tricky part, and believe me, I know, been there. But how do you tell them? As we don't really want to offend, insult or upset anyone. I mean, how would you feel if it was said to you? The first thing I would do is look at their bike. Is it too big or heavy for it? It's easier to mention this, as it won't look like a personal criticism. The next step is look how far you ride. Could you cut the ride down to a shorter distance, or take more breaks to give them a rest? But don't let this person lead the ride, as this will put pressure on them and cause a lack in their riding concentration. Don't let them be tail end Charlie, as riding at the rear of the pack will mean they have to try and ride quicker to keep up with the rest of you. Place them in between and try to put a good rider in front of them. And just take your time, watch your speed. We're like lemmings, and the chances are that the rider in question will most likely follow the same lines of the rider in front. If you think this rider needs some extra training, rather than just tell them and hurt their feelings, mention to them that you're going to do the said training and ask them to join you as a mate. Who knows, you might take something away with you as well. At least you'll both had a good day out and a few laughs along the way. A big shout out and thank you to all my recent views and subscribers that I've gained. I really do appreciate it. It's absolutely great to read the comments. I hope I've replied to every single one. If I have missed you, I'm very sorry. But it's what makes all this worthwhile. It's what I get out of it. I do enjoy it. Once again, thank you very much. So as always, thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do the ticks. And as always, take care, ride safe, and bye for now.